Today, we're going to talk about a neuroscience principle that anyone can use to rewire their brain for positivity.
Life is beautiful.
So now that I have a longer commute on my rides home after work, I've been making some phone calls. Pick up the phone and start dialing. And I picked up the phone and I dialed my friend the other day. And he asked me how I'm doing. And my answer was something that surprised me and I think will make you very happy. I said, I just did my quarterly review and I have to say, this was the happiest, most productive 3 months of my entire life.
Wow, good for you, bro.
I was extremely proud of myself in that moment when I realized, I
You
didn't
should be
realize when
proud
I
of
did the
yourself.
quarterly review that, I should be proud of myself, but I am really proud of myself to
You
be
should
able
be.
to say that this was the productive thing is one thing. And that's something that I feel like every 3 months I'm the most productive I've ever been. That's not really my problem. But to say that I am the happiest I've ever been, that's the thing that I'm truly proud of.
Mm.
And I thought about it. He said, like, why are you so happy? I said, it's not even like the circumstances of my life are amazing, oh my God, so many blessings to count. It's not like that. I mean, there are, but it's not like extraordinary,
Mm.
There wasn't any extraordinary events that happened in the 3 months that would warrant me to say that this was the happiest 3 months of my life. But I said, I told him my mindset has just been in a place where no matter what is going on in the circumstances of my life, I'm wired to find the opportunity to be grateful. I'm wired to basically see every failure, every setback, every challenge, every seemingly negative event as something that can be flipped into a positive.
Hmm.
And just that mindset alone, being able to default my brain to that place is something I've never been able to do in my entire life. I was
Wow.
one of those people that was born on the other side of that coin, which is even if something good happens, I'm looking for the threat that's hidden underneath it.
Mm.
Right. I have a very strong negativity bias that was from genetics.
Yeah, because we've done research into this, right? 40% of our happiness is genetics.
Yeah. And I think that I got the unhappy gene and you got the happy gene. And I've had to work really, really hard. And I looked at this and I said, what is really going on here? What is the actual thing that happened in my brain? Because I feel that my brain has, I would say I've rewired my brain.
Yeah.
But then I was reading Nicole LePera's book, who we just interviewed on the podcast, and I realized what is actually going on. There's something called Hebb's Law. Have you heard of that?
No.
So Hebb's Law, I had no idea, explains what neuroplasticity really is. So you've heard of neuroplasticity, right?
Yeah, basically, neurons that fire together wire together.
Yeah, that's Hebb's Law. That's actually Hebb's Law. That's actually Hebb's Law. But neuroplasticity is just the concept that your brain can change.
Yeah, that basically your brain is made of like Play-Doh and it is malleable and
Right.
can change.
So a Canadian neuropsychologist named Donald Hebb discovered this concept in 1949, that basically neurons that fire together wire together. And he describes how neuroplasticity works at the cellular level. So our brain cells are called neurons. They're these longer cells with a tail and a head, and they create these chains of they connect each other in chains where the tail is connected to the head and so on and so
Mhm.
forth. And that's how information passes through
Yeah.
the brain.
There's really cool videos of this on Instagram of actually what this looks like.
Okay, so when two neurons fire simultaneously, the receiving neuron undergoes structural changes where the receptor sites on its surface become more sensitive and sometimes entirely new receptor sites grow. So the synapse, which is basically the space, like the connecting space, gets
Yeah.
physically larger and more efficient with repeated use. It's called long term potentiation, LTP, and it's the cellular mechanism behind all learning, all habit, and all memory. So basically, when two neurons, to put that in layman's terms, when two neurons fire together, structurally they become a lot more connected and intertwined with one another. So the path of information that gets passed through is very
So
efficient.
it's physically changing the structure of the brain.
Exactly.
So
So basically, to go back to my story,
Mhm.
when I was born, I've had neurons, really strong connections that were wired to look for threats, to
Mhm.
look for the pessimistic side of situations. And slowly but surely, through repetition of reframing circumstances, filling my mind with positive things, doing this podcast day after day after day after day, I have created a stronger connection with a new neural pathway that has been built over time. It's actually become more efficient to be positive in my brain than to be negative. And the same way that neurons that fire together wire together, neurons that fire apart wire apart.
Mm.
So the default mode that I've been for so long, because I haven't been using it, is slowly withering away. And now I'm like, my default state is moving towards that
Yeah.
positive reframing.
Wow. So the most visible proof of Hebb's law, you want to hear it?
Mm,
The London cab driver study. Did you ever hear about this one?
no.
Actually, they did a challenge on The Amazing Race about this.
Okay.
Okay, so to get a London taxi license, drivers must memorize every street, landmark, and shortcut in one of the most complex road networks on Earth. 25,000 streets across a 6-mile radius. It's called the knowledge, and it takes about 2 to 4 years to master it. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Neuroscientists at UCL scanned their brains before and after. The hippocampus, the brain's navigation and spatial memory center, was measurably larger in licensed cabbies than the general population. And the longer they'd been driving, the bigger it was. So repetition didn't just change their skills, it physically changed the structure of their brain.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how useful it is to know all of London. I mean, I guess it's useful for them.
Well, but the deeper thing here is it's a visible proof that
Yeah,
the
like
more you repeat something, the more there's physical change that happens inside the brain. And
100%.
then you can use that just like you did with how
Yeah.
you've continuously repeated
Yeah.
mindset concepts in your brain to
I
change how
think
you
there's
think.
one warning to this episode and to this concept. And it's that if you don't use it, you lose it.
Mm.
And so if I was to stop this podcast, let's say, if I was to stop recording this podcast with you, within 3 months, those default pathways of negativity would start to get stronger because they had been repeated for way longer than this last, let's say, 6 months of me being really diligent about repeating the positive pathways.
Yeah.
So over time, I would return back to that default state. So it's like a never ending process of constantly filling your mind. Like you can't get complacent once. Like I can't just say, yeah, I'm positive now. My default mode is positive now.
Yeah.
It is. But the only reason it is because I continue to do it every single day.
Yeah, you need that daily drip.
You need the daily drip. You really do. So I think in summary, what we're trying to really get at here is that no matter how negative your disposition is, like me, and you can be lucky like Nick, but if you're like me and your disposition is not the happiest or the most positive, and you have a really strong negativity you have a really strong negativity bias, if you stay consistent with daily disciplines, feeding your mind daily, you don't get complacent, you do it day after day after day, you literally can rewire your neural networks to find the good every single day and be happier. Like I am living proof that you can do it because I, at one point in my life, was suicidal, and here I am telling you I'm the happiest I have ever been.
That's awesome.
So I wanted to make this episode to be living proof that like you can do it.
You can change your brain.
You really can.
All right. So what's the call to action, Mike?
The call to action is to really, and it's a shameless plug. So this podcast, you're listening to it. You're already doing something every single day by listening to this podcast to rewire the connections in your brain to find positivity, because that's what we're talking about day after day. But I am sure there are days where you don't have time to even take the 7 minutes to listen to this podcast, in which case we do have a daily newsletter called One Good Quote, where no matter how much freaking time you have, it only takes 5 seconds to open up every day this one good quote that'll land right in your inbox. That will be a 10-second summary of what we've talked about in this episode, in that day's episode.
And people have said this is their favorite thing that we've produced.
Yeah, we just got that text message this morning, which was awesome. So if you want to keep the consistency going, because consistency is the most important thing here. It's day after day after day. Even if it's the smallest 10-second drip, you have to do it every day. So if you want to do that, you can sign up at theobros.com/quote. It's 100% free, and you can find the link in the show notes.
All right. Well, Mike, I am happy that you are the happiest you've ever been.
Me too.
And I'm happy that you, on the other end of this microphone, are continuing to show up and change your chemistry in your brain by listening to the 7 Minute Mindset. We love you. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Peace.